Hi, and welcome everybody to MindShifters Radio. Today is Monday, March the 23rd, 2026. Welcome Terry and Michael, Anita, Carrie, Susan, Melissa. Good group
Hello.
starting out. Hey, how you doing? Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. We be deeply honored that once again you've chosen to spend some time with us. And one of the biggest things on my mind right now is my deep appreciation for so many immigrants in our country. This morning, I went out, we've got some pretty tough soil here, so I had to go out and buy a pickaxe in order to plant a mulberry tree. And I know that I worked, and I just really appreciate the work that so many people have done. There's a powerful film called McFarland USA, Kevin Costner, and it really gives a picture of the working life, the kind of dedication that so many people, especially from Mexico, have. So anyway, just an acknowledgement from my aching muscles from my morning with the pickaxe. And how's everybody else doing? Anyone anything to
Hey,
share?
I'd like to share a gratitude since you're doing gratitude um, to Terry Bowling. Been reading his Substack and been reading also Jeannie's book and recognizing the power that stepping outside of habitual ways of thinking about yourself and being and the mind-body connection and how easy it is to just go back into those old ways of thinking because they're familiar and the bravery that it takes to step into that hopefulness of something new. And so I just want to give a shout out to Jeanie for the work she's done and Terry for the work you're doing, and how grateful I am because you are both shifting the energies in the world and embodying that sort of work that shifts the consciousness of the planet. And the concept that you have, Michael, of regulatory speech, I often think of it in terms of our words, our spells. You know, we're creating as we speak, and the way we speak, we're creating. And to see the shift in Terry and Jeanie and others, you know, as we've been on the codependence to interdependence journey, to see the shift in people with their language really embodies what they've been going through. And we're recreating a different spell, I think, through your work, Michael, and everybody else's work, and how all of these different modalities that people use are so complementary to the truth. So the truth is the truth, no matter what modality it shows up in. And I just have a lot of gratitude for people who are doing the work. So thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. I appreciate that acknowledgement, and it really touched me. I also appreciated your little tag on Facebook, and just knowing you're out there, that people are there listening, paying attention, and that there's possibility of making a little difference is great. Really feels good, and Michael's been just a constant support. As long as I was willing to step up to the plate, he's always been there. A lot of times I wasn't really willing. I'd go into hiding. I'd get to another deeper level and come back. He was always there.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, Michael. Jeanie.
It's like the ebb and flow of the breath, right? So
Yeah.
I see the breath. I see God's breath as the exhale of God's breath has been creating this separation for experience. And then now we're on the big inhale, returning to oneness. But as we breathe in this infinity breath, where there's no pause to the breath, we can allow ourselves those times of going back in, going within, and integrating. And sometimes that integration takes us back into the old ways of thinking because, like I said, they're familiar. And then we recognize what that is, and then we want to really inhale again. We want to breathe in that love and breathe out the gratitude. So that process for me has been very similar, Terry, where I go in and out, go in and out. And I've come to see it as a normal progression. People sometimes say 2 steps back, 1 step forward, or 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That's another way of saying it, but I prefer to look at it in terms of a cycle of breath, where we're integrating the work, perhaps going back to old patterns, and then recognizing them and in a new way, and being able to step back into the work again. And I think we need that as humans. We need to allow ourselves some grace as we work through things like trauma, because it takes a toll on the mind and the body, and we need to rest in between. So thank you, Michael, for being there for us as we sometimes rest in those in-between places. And then when we're ready to breathe in again, we come back to the work.
Well, thank you for saying thank you and acknowledging Terry, and I'll join in that acknowledgement. His Substack writing, you can find it on Substack at Terry Ray Bowling, and maybe Terry would even put a link in the chat here. And also, Terry is starting to get set up to teach the why work, and is working on a book entitled Why Again? When Terry was on the support team at Heartland. Well, you tell the story, Terry.
Oh, yeah, it makes me smile. And I want to thank Carrie, too, because you gave me some insights there. And at one point, I didn't even know it. I was holding my breath, and you said something that's like, wow, that breath. When you said it, I just opened up and took this beautiful breath and released that tension. And it gave me another piece to this image that I created. And it's not one that I just solely created. It's one that I kind of picked up. So people were talking about we go around in a circle. And so, you come back and you're going through and you're just chasing your tail like a dog chases his tail. Well, I took that and expanded it and said, well, no, it's not a circle, it's a spiral. And I'm spiraling up. And now I saw the circle starting out with a circle diagram and label the north, south, east, west. And as I spiral through the east again, I will connect with those energies and then move back through. And I think there's probably some stuff that I can find that correlates to some of the Hindu Upanishads and that kind of stuff. They relate to the directions and what each one means. The sun, east is facing the rising, and maybe that's when I'm coming up and blowing, and then you go back through the winter and you might integrate it. So I've got that formulating right now in my mind. I appreciate that. And Michael, I was continuing on with my thought process on the why again. So what I've come to is I was going to do two continuous workshops, ongoing workshops, one on Saturday and one on Thursday evening. And to offer the why again on just a donation basis if anybody wanted to, and do that once a month. Those two, to give an evening and a Saturday, once a month, and put that out there and have it 6 months of that minimum, and then maybe further. So that'd be 12 workshops coming up as soon as you and I finish kind of assimilating. You were going to send me over a couple other PowerPoints, and I want to get that locked in and hammered down, and then be ready to launch that. So good stuff, feeling good, having fun with my kids. They're helping me move a bunch of stuff up to the little property up there, and we've been watching Game of Thrones, and I never watched that. And then there's they kept talking about sigils, SIGILS, and I actually had created one from a little piece that I got from somebody. And I'm getting a little off track, but all that kind of integrates symbolism. There's lots of ways to work and keep progressing on this path. And I appreciate everybody that's here and everybody that continues to be here.
So Terry, there's an alchemy that's created when we're in this spiral of the seven directions. So we've got the east, south, west, north, the below, the above, and the within. And as we sit in those, I mean, you can sit in those in a meditation and pull in all of those directions. There's an alchemy that's created that takes us into the breath of God, the inhale, if you like. And I have an altar in my room, and I actually moved my whole room around so that I could put my altar on the east for the rising sun. So that as I sit in the alchemy of the seven directions, I can actually feel creative energies. And that's been very powerful for me.
Sweet. Well, one of the things that happened in our MindShifters and Still Point Breathing Club this weekend is that the conversation turned to writing and teaching the work. And Julie Matthews, who's in Spain, was in the group, and she's been moving that direction. Terry is, and the conversation just moved in that direction. And one of the things you've asked about, Carrie, was certification. And, I've not created a certification process for any of the courses yet. I didn't feel like I was qualified to. I've done certificates of completion of, let's say, laws of living or why is this happening to me again, teacher training and such. But what I would like to see is a group of people come together who would assist in creating a certification process. And out of our conversation in the MindShifters and Still Point Breathing Club, the idea that came forward was that, seeing as how we had people who were writing around the why work, was really creating a system of support for those who want to write, who want to take this and put it into their own format, as Jeanie has done. And one of the things we talked about when you think of it, of our physiology and such as being energetic, that we're energetic beings, that there's a time for absorption of energy. There's a certain, impact of that. But then where the real thing happens is when we start to radiate that energy, we turn around and start to put it back out again. So I see, maybe a group coming together to create a certification process, and then a support system for people who really want to help to take this to the world. So we'll put that all out in the ethers and see where it goes. Anyone else anything to share before we move into the topic we had proposed? Okay. I did put a link in to the notes if anybody wants to watch the movie McFarlane. There's a link on it. You can watch it free on YouTube. Anyway, it's powerful look at just down to earth, real hardworking people, and what community really means. And the other piece of the puzzle that we wanted to talk about was regulatory speech. So I want to step into a conversation about regulatory speech. And it's something that we cover, pretty extensively in Laws of Living. We actually spend a lot of time on it. And the idea is, let's kind of lay a foundation. Yeshua says, "My words are your perfect life." He's talking, my offering is, he's a physicist. He knows what he's talking about. He's talking about energy. He's talking about frequency. He's talking about vibration. And of course, who's heard his words or even ideas close to what his words really meant in this Western world 2,000 years later, and, at least 3 cultures, language changes, who's heard his words. And one of the ideas is to recognize that what we speak literally has an energetic impact, first and foremost, on our own cellular structure, on our own physiology. There's a whole science of cymatics. You might look up on YouTube cymatics videos, and basically it's the science of how the vibration of a sound organizes matter. And one of the most common ones, most everybody's seen somewhere along the way, is they'll take let's say a drum head, and they'll stand on the drum head and then turn a speaker system on and crank up a certain piece of music, and all of a sudden the sand begins to dance and go into just amazing geometric shapes organized by the sound. They change the frequency, they move to a different piece of music, and all of a sudden the shape is a totally different shape. And when you think about what your voice box does, especially if you live in a world of whining and crying, complaining, condemning, especially with highly charged emotional energy, what are you doing to the tissue in around your throat, your brain, that are being radiated by that? And then to move to the level of recognizing that speech, sound, is a regulator of everything that we engage in. So we're talking about regulatory speech. We're talking about speech that literally becomes cellular chemistry. We're talking about speech that literally sets up the emotions that we experience. We're talking about speech that literally sets up the frequencies that radiate out from us and through resonance draw results into our lives. So this is speech that regulates those things. And in particular laws of living, what we look at is that if we're functioning out of unconscious speech, being creative beings, then we're creating unconsciously. And if we have been indoctrinated into certain, as Carrie so aptly put it, spells, you look at it, you go to school and you learn to do what? Spelling. That's what words do. And so Shakespeare, in one of his sonnets, offers the thought, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. And what he's acknowledging there is my words are a reflection of unconscious dynamics. Now, my take is you and I are not designed to function out of any sort of unconscious frequency patterns or unconscious dynamics. We're designed to function as conscious spiritual being, originating speech consciously, purposely, in harmony with who we are and what our purpose is. However, because we've bought into the brainwash of the culture, a great deal of our mind energy is unconscious. You go back to the ancient Aramaic and they said, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. And that word heart in our modern updated language would be the unconscious. Take care of what's unconscious in you, because they are where the impacted energies are held for most people. You must forgive from your heart, from your unconscious, that with which you generate your brain's image of your brother. You're all upset about what your brother did? No, you've never been upset by what anybody's ever done. But if there's upset in you, you can certainly, through speech, put that upset into your brain's image of anybody or anything, including yourself. Anybody who has any form of upset is in that form of upset because it's in them, not because anybody did anything. And then, of course, 1,000 people can come along, and the person who's in denial of their upset, that person can put their upset onto anybody and everybody. So we want to just kind of take a look at this speech, some speech patterns. And, Jeanie had acknowledged in her reading of the book that there were some occasions of regulatory speech. So we kind of picked a few out. And we want to just kind of give everybody a sense of that idea that when we refer to regulatory speech, we're talking about, are you conscious of the words that you've just used, and is what you're saying in alignment with what you really mean or what you really want? Or is there still, and your words will tell you this when they fly up, is there still an unconscious dynamic that you want to be looking at and dealing with that otherwise would be invisible? If you pay attention to your speech, then you get to see that unconscious dynamic. So Jeanie picked a few pieces out. Do you have any thoughts, sweetie, to share?
No, it's good. I'm not going to rewrite the book, though.
No, the whole idea is, to just keep watching. One of the fruits of our lives is our language, is our thought systems. And so when we see that there are pieces of work to be done, great, let's jump in and do that work. So one of the pieces that Jeanie sent to me this morning, and I just put it in so everybody can be looking at it. I just put it in the chat. Our stories need no longer imprison us. They become the foundation for compassion, forgiveness, and understanding. We're no longer the victim of our past, but a living testament to what love can restore. So what I'd like to do, just had the thought of maybe taking a few of these statements, putting them in, and then just see if anybody has any thoughts, anything to share about the speech in these sentences. Anybody have a thought on that one? Our stories need no longer imprison us, for they become the foundation for compassion, forgiveness, and understanding. We're no longer the victim of our past, but a living testament to what love can restore.
So does adding something positive behind the negative not help negate it?
Well, my take, sweetie, would be that I don't want to negate anything, because you can't negate anything. You know, if I say, I'm going to negate you thinking about the color of your car, don't think about the color of your car. And what happens? Well, the brain cells are fire, because the mind works by resonance. According to the language I used, that's what's going to fire in brain cells. Doesn't matter how many don'ts I put in front of it. And so the objective here would be, I want to be conscious of something that indicates there's an issue I need to work with, and then work through the forgiveness of that issue, so there's nothing there to negate, so that I'm free of it. So let's take that, the first sentence there. Our stories need no longer imprison us. Now that could be, you could use that as fully conscious speech. You know, if the paragraph before talked about, here I found myself imprisoned all my life in these stories and lost and locked in. And then it could be conscious speech to say, our stories need no longer imprison me or imprison us. So that could be conscious speech, and the objective is to get to conscious speech. But in the context of this sentence, quite likely, so is there still a piece of my mind that believes that stories are still imprisoning me? And if so, the way to use regulatory speech in a constructive fashion is to use it to recognize, maybe there's some unconscious thoughts about imprisonment, about being held captive to the past. And so what one would do with that would be to look at it if it were unconscious. Now, again, that could be consciously spoken. We're talking about an issue. You don't, just because you address a negative issue doesn't mean that that regulatory speech is involved. So, but if you looked at that and you went, yeah, there's still some imprisonment. So then that would be a way to use that and clean up the regulatory speech, would be to use that as a catalyst to look inside and go, so is there a part of me that still feels imprisoned by my past or my stories? Then I'd turn that into a mind shifter or a worksheet, perhaps. So it might look like, so I recognize in the past I felt imprisoned by my stories, and now I'm going to really pay attention. Every time I tell myself a story, I'm going to be cognizant of the words that I use, and if there's an indicator there's something hiding in my mind, I'm going to use that as a catalyst to become aware of it and clean it out. So that would be a way to make constructive use of what might be regulatory speech.
Michael,
Yes, sir.
so this is great topic, and I have seen you in so many situations, all the times at Heartland and in workshops and all where you quickly become John the Baptist.
I have had an occasional experience of that.
I've seen the sword swung at you so many times. Whop! And so it's like, okay. And what it brings to me is it brings to my mind is exactly one thing that I was contemplating this morning. And that was, okay, there's an order, a logical order that you have for your modules, each one of your works, like the why again, okay, introduction, bam, put it out there, get people doing worksheets, that's good. Because, for me personally, checking that box literally thousands of times, letting go of the need to be right, softened up my resistance and allowed me to be a a little more willing to hear feedback. I've got to be able to hear the feedback and take it and own it. And so as I was saying, the progression is like, okay, when you're working with someone, it's talking about working with someone that's new with doing a wagon work. You're going to get them introduced, and then hopefully they're going to engage with worksheets, and they'll progress. And then you've got, the responsibility communication. You've got the codependence, interdependence. You've got the lost livings. You've got all these other modules. I'm sure that you have in your mind like kind of a sequence of how that might best strengthen someone to be able to open up and be more receptive to feedback like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when people go into the blame game, and especially if someone's in pain, and talking about how somebody else is the cause of their pain or the reason they're in pain, or pretending that they're owning their pain, but they're still in a conversation about somebody else. That is definitely a part of the game, and part of teaching this work is that there will be opportunities to play John the Baptist and clean up. For me, if I find myself in that place of playing John the Baptist, then that's feedback for me to look at. So what's the next part of my mind that feels like I deserve this attack? What's my work here? Or why is this in my space? And what's my work to do here? And so that's a progression, from my side too. And, one of the things that I've, with the fact that you're starting to teach over the years, I've had people like, oh, I'm going to teach this work. I'm going to go out and travel like Michael Ryce and go all over the world. And I always caution, whoa, slow down. That's a great vision. Should you choose to do that over time? However, what I would suggest is that you stay home, you start a local group and work locally, because you're going to draw people who are going to show you everything you haven't dealt with. And when you can do that, when you're at home, in your own home, and the expenses are low, you're not on the road paying for gas, paying for hotels, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot cheaper to stay home and get that initial work done of working through the inevitable, situations where John the Baptist is the order of the day for people. So it's definitely a part of the process, and standing in the willingness to, if you feel accused when somebody's in their stuff, if you feel accused, then that's the next place to do your own work as a teacher. Does that bit make sense?
Absolutely. That was outstanding.
Cool. So anyone else, any thoughts on what we've said so far about regulatory speech? We want to do the best we can to communicate it. We're going to do a few examples here. Is that triggering anything for anyone? Any insight, any questions? Okay, then let's look at the last sentence in the piece that is posted in the chat. We're no longer the victim of our past, but a living testament to what love can restore. Now, my offer would be that's probably a place where, if you heard someone saying that, you'd want to point out there's some regulatory speech, that there's still a belief in victimhood. And you can see in this sentence what Jeannie's moving toward. Oh, a living testament to what love can restore. Yes. And underneath that file, it would appear from the speech that there's still perhaps some victim to look at. And so, and sometimes, as you said, Terry, sometimes people can feel like they're being picked on if something like that's pointed out, as opposed to, oh, great, this is another piece of my puzzle. Thank you. And of course, over the years, if you've been listening to the show, you'll see many times that I stop somebody mid-sentence and say, "Whoa, wait a minute, let's look at that thought." And is that a thought? Probably the greatest atrocity, you've heard me say this before many times, that's been done to us down through the ages and then we bought into, is that we've had hidden from us the fact that we are by nature creators. You and I are creative beings. And that's a wonderful idea that everybody loves, unless the creation isn't going so well. And then everybody knows who's at fault, and the name of the person at fault is always them. And so the objective here with the show, if someone comes forward with and speech that indicates that there's blame, one of the objectives is to bring forward and invite people to own the blame. Gee, it sounds like you're holding the belief that something outside of you is the cause of this speech in you, or this emotion in you, or this whatever it is that's happening. And the invitation is, as gently as possible, to keep feeding back ownership, responsibility. So the invitation here would be, suggest some worksheets around victimhood, and then you could take that sentence and turn it into conscious language. And that would be, the work we're doing is a living testament to what love can restore. And if victimhood comes up, then I treat it as an opportunity to become conscious of any part of, my genes, my belief system that holds victimhood, and free myself from. So it becomes a space for conscious interaction with your own unconscious mind. That makes sense for everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Thoughts, young lady.
Well, I'm guilty of yes, lots of gaffes in that department, so examples are very much welcome.
I
Yeah,
had one. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, this is Sally. This morning I was in my weekly Monday Morning Miracles meeting, and we were talking about, forgiveness. I think it was, I'm trying to remember exactly where we were in the book, but it came to my mind to share that it sometimes is difficult being in the residence and resonance with my family of origin, that being my mother and both of my brothers. And I heard myself saying, that it was work to be constantly reminded of that frequency of fear, which still remains in me, that gets activated when I'm seeing my mom go into various scenarios and dramas, and my brother, etc. And at the beginning, I was definitely sounding victim. And as I talked a little further, I realized how they were providing me with opportunities to do the work all through the day. Whereas if I lived in a vacuum or alone, I wouldn't have as many opportunities to work, because I'm constantly seeing what's coming up in me as a response to a very familiar pattern that my family runs. So anyway, it just fit with the conversation, because it's so it's exciting that my ability to catch myself being victim or being in any way complaining about the external conditions, it's much quicker than it used to be. Sometimes I could go weeks, with my violin, and now I'm like quicker. So
That's the fruit of your work.
yeah, progress, it's happening.
my offering would be there's another piece in there in your speech that might be useful to look at,
I'd
and that
like
was
to know.
the opening words that you spoke about that situation, and it's difficult with my family.
Hmm.
So that would indicate, so you have a file on family, and in your family there's difficult. So that would be something that would specifically, you'd want to do some worksheets on difficulty with family, maybe this family member, that family member, or maybe myself as part of the family. When I look in the mirror, I'd be doing, looking at the various ways I could do worksheets around difficulty and free myself from that. And then maybe create a mind shifter where I want to counteract this unconscious belief of difficulty, bring it to the surface. So the mind shifter might be, whenever I'm with my family, I always feel at ease and there's grace, because every time something comes up, I get to heal.
Okay. Good mind shifter. Thank you. So on the worksheet, I would do like for the feeling space, just write difficulty.
Well, difficulty would be a thought. Now, if my unconscious thought is it's difficult to be with my family, it might be the emotional aspect. It might be, whenever that difficulty comes up, it might be, and I'm in terror because I might get hurt, or it might be, I'm in fear because who's going to get it next? Or it might be sadness. Oh, I feel lost because what I'd really like is ease with my family.
Yeah. Okay. It would be more sadness.
So
Okay.
then that speech gives you the opportunity to clean up sadness around your family, and now you'll bring a whole different energy to the family, which is going to change the family dynamic. And if you sat down and had a conversation with whoever in the family has been or played the role of a power person with you, and talked about difficulty, you'd probably find them telling the same story about being with family as this difficulty situation is, because it probably didn't start with you, but it can end
No.
with you.
Yes.
When you get conscious and go, oh, gee, Mom, has it ever felt like difficult to be around when all the kids are around? Oh, yeah, I feel like I have to on pins and needles. I have to, bingo. So if that might be a family pattern, and if everybody in the family started to look at their unconscious beliefs about it being difficult to be with family members, then what would tend to show up is more ease and grace within the family when they're together.
Okay. I've had that conversation with my mom, and she, when my brother goes out like he did last night to go to a concert, my mom said, "Oh, it's just you and me. It's like a relaxing evening." And then she looks at me many times, "What are we going to do about your brother?" And I'm like, "Oh boy, here we go." So it's an interesting situation, and thank you for that. I'm learning to love worksheets.
Cool. And maybe that might be an opportunity to invite brother into the conversation with you and Mom about what those challenges are, to speak responsibly and own them, rather than, if Mom holds a belief that, well, see, brother's the problem, that might open a space for Mom to be able to say, gee, sometimes I feel confused because I don't know what to do with what you do, son. Oh, chance for Mom to heal confusion. Son to look
Right.
at his dynamic in it, and rarely, when there's an issue in the family that needs to come up, rarely is it just one person.
Right. Oh,
There's usually several connecting bags of garbage, and everybody gets to move through it. So if we speak of ease and grace with each other, then ease and grace will tend to run the show rather than difficulty. We
thank
can
you.
create differently than the unconscious dynamic that was already operating in the family when we arrived in it. Create whole new dynamics. Cool. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. Somebody else spoke.
Miss Susan, did you have
Yeah.
a specific that you might want to pull out of the old unconscious and take a look at? Share with us?
Michael, endless opportunities, endless questions, as always. Sometime back we talked, and it was recent, we talked about the fact that Mary, in the Roman Catholic tradition, they say Mary felt pain at the birth of her son, and I'm assuming she felt pain when he was crucified and pain all the time, maybe throughout, but she did not suffer.
Right.
And I spoke to a priest friend of mine who was not Roman Catholic, and he had not heard of that. Then I spoke to a scholar, a biblical scholar friend of mine, and she said, oh, yes, it's in one of the, I think she said, apocryphal books, and maybe even a Gnostic book. I didn't look it up, the book of James. She said she thinks that was the origin of that. Anyway, I've been thinking a lot about the difference between when I observe the state of the world, for instance, just to pick a small example.
Right.
And I do my breathing, and I watch, and this goes all the way from the state of the world to the gorgeous, friendly orange feral cat that Tim and I have been feeding for 2 years, who I observed was not feeling well, took him to the vet, and he had to be put down. And he allowed me to hold him as I put him down. And the crying and the sadness, and I'm saying, okay, is this pain? And am I suffering? I really couldn't answer it. I couldn't make a difference. And it doesn't matter, but I'm just curious about this distinction. And I know that's not about regulatory speech, I don't think, but it's been on
Well,
my
actually,
mind.
no, I think it would tie in because okay, so when we talked about this last time, we talked about part of the quantum still point is to get to experience sensations in the body
Mm-hmm.
and extracting the mental component of suffering from it.
Yeah.
And so when
Well, that's
one
an
experience,
interpretation, isn't it? That's a thought.
yes, when you add the
Okay.
thought, this is terrible. I am, there's a sensation. I, cancel the thought. I, skin my knee on the railing. And so there's going to be a sensation there. Most people call that sensation pain. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
if I then choose to go to suffering, I can then play the game of, God, why me? Why do I always have these things happen? Here I am. I was just walking down the stairs and I slipped, and what's wrong with me? And I can add a whole realm of suffering about how there's something wrong with me and I get to be victim. And so to me, that would be the suffering component. We add that
Oh,
with our mind energy, where there is a physical sensation. And sucker, that hurts.
okay.
I did, in fact, hit my knee, and I did, again, cancel the thought. And it does, in fact, create a pretty strong sensation in my body.
That is really interesting because in both cases, I'm not aware of feeling as if I am the victim of this, but I am observing it, and my heart hurts sometimes. Now, is that just pain? I'm not lining up and saying, oh, poor me, because I'm feeling this. I'm just feeling it. Maybe it's okay then.
My thought would be that you take the tool of forgiveness and you apply it and see if you get an energy shift. If you get an energy shift when you apply forgiveness, then you know that a component of the suffering was added by the mind. It wasn't just a result of the actual energetic interaction between the knee and the railing.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. And I'll have to think about that, but I could feel a little separation between the two as you spoke, and I lost it already, but I got it for a second.
Cool.
Like the interpretation of the cat. I think about from that particular cat who got through the winter living outdoors with very little help because he doesn't come into any warm space. He holes up somewhere and finds ways of being able to survive. And of course, I interpret, because if I were out there, I would hate it. So I think I feel badly for the cat. And then I congratulate him in my mind. You made it all the way through winter, and now you don't look well, and I'm going to take you to the vet. And sure enough, he had liver failure. Uh, and he probably didn't feel good for quite a long time. So I do take his particular dying and the poignancy of that, because animals, as you say, they're probably one of the examples of those who feel pain but do not suffer. And that's my question. Was he suffering? I don't know. I'll never know. I'm imagining he's suffering, and then I'm feeling badly in an extended way, because I imagine that not only he, but all feral animals are suffering, and so on.
Well, for me, the dividing line for that one would be, so if my purpose in the world is to function as a human being, that is, as the conscious active presence of love, and therefore make a contribution of that energy present to whatever happens in the world, if I go into my own mental suffering over the fact that this animal experiences pain, am I fulfilling my purpose? Am I being of service? Or is it possible that if I could just be there holding the animal that is obviously in pain, that by my functioning out of nothing other than my human state of human beingness and compassion, am alleviating the pain of that animal? Do I add to it by, oh, how terrible it must be, by creating something that just ain't necessarily so?
Yeah, and I guess we can't know that. Okay, so I guess I'm confusing pain with suffering. I am confusing it because it hurts. I mean, like your knee is going to hurt. And so I'm assuming that there's some suffering there. And maybe that distinction just needs to be made, because it feels rather artificial at this point. And maybe it's not. Maybe part of it is a construct of the mind.
Could I
So,
add a thought?
yeah.
Please?
So, I think animals do feel fear,
Mm-hmm.
and when they're anticipating pain, perhaps, because I mean, if you think about the cattle and the beef industry,
Oh, yeah.
and I know they've changed some of their practices now, but or the hogs or whatever that are going in to be killed, is they would literally cry out in fear because
Yeah.
they heard their brothers and sisters being killed. And people have talked about you shouldn't eat that meat because it has the energy of fear in it.
Chemistry, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can remember on the farm, I mean, this was when I was a kid. I remember Granddad, they would raise their own cattle and hogs and everything. And I can remember him telling, I don't know if it was one of my brothers or who, because they were getting ready to slaughter one. He said, "You've got to get it on the first shot or we can't use it." So if you
Oh,
shot it and it didn't die immediately, then it would ruin the meat.
Right. Exactly. And the same with people who go deer hunting.
Mm.
You know, I've seen hunters who have chased a wounded deer through field and forest to get the kill shot. And that animal is full of fear.
But there's a definite chemistry there.
So the fear, to me, is an aspect of suffering.
Right. For me too.
So if I'm conscious that there's a vibration of fear in me, and that fear is displacing love, then it would seem to behoove me to do the work of forgiving as to my fear so that I can stand as a space of love, whatever's happening in the world, for the good, the bad, and the ugly, whether it's the most horrible, war crime that's ever occurred that I'm watching, or whether it's the wondrous wedding of two people in love. What kind of a space am I? What kind of energy, creative energy, do I bring to that situation? And to me, the objective as a human being, because we have this conscious capacity, is to recognize that I can free myself of dynamics that would create suffering for myself and would tend through resonance to set up the same in someone else if that frequency is in them, or reinforce it in them. Whereas if I do the work around it, and let's say that energy is there in them, then I can become the space that can help to heal that wound, that can be the salve that heals that wound. What mind energy do I bring, and am I willing to be responsible for every piece of mind energy that I hold, rather than assuming that certain things must be true, like the brainwash that the culture's given me? And am I willing to forgive all of that brainwash and step into a different state of being? Does that make sense?
I'm not aware of, at the point of wanting to help the cat, of having anything but concern and love for the cat. So it doesn't make sense yet, but maybe it will if I think about it more. I mean, if I did a wake up sheet on the cat, I guess I should do a wake up sheet and see where it takes me.
Yeah. See what comes.
Also, I feel I had to put my beloved cat down several years ago. I still feel attached to her. I sense her. And the other cat, also the male cat that was with us, we had to put him down. And as I was sobbing, I was also pouring out love to him.
Oh, yeah.
Lots and lots of love. And to me, that was what it was all about, was having him, yes, having him know how much we loved him and how much he gave us gratitude. I was just pouring out all those things to him. I was talking to him the whole time.
Yeah.
As he gradually faded. And because they first give them a relaxing shot, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's when I was just talking to him, because I felt a deep connection then. I felt he was really open and my heart was open. And that was what he needed, was, even though I was sobbing, there was this outpouring of love and gratitude. And I think that's what we can give in those situations, right?
Absolutely. Unless we're so caught in our own mental deficiency that creates so much suffering that we can't bring through that true state of being, that true condition of love.
Mm. It feels like a very pure grief when I've felt I'm saying goodbye to this cat. And I have a beloved 15-year-old cat who's getting weaker by the day and who is just wonderful and such a friend. And he talks to us and he headbutts us and he's been a friend. And of course we'd miss him, but the gratitude I feel for having had this friend, and we still have him. I'm not, planning his demise, but I think an animal pulls out the purest emotions. And maybe in that case, it's not so much, I don't know what it is, Michael. It's past the hour, and here we go. We could go on forever, but it's food for thought. Thanks for engaging the discussion, and thank you, Carrie, too.
Well, let's bring in another piece here. You had mentioned the idea of Mary and suffering
Yeah.
came up. So in Luke 2:34 and 35, Simeon offers a prophecy
Yeah.
during the presentation of Jesus at the temple. So then Simeon blessed them and said to Mary, his mother, "This child is destined to cause the falling and rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be spoken against, so that the thoughts of many hearts will be revealed,
Right.
and a sword will pierce your own soul too."
Yes.
And so there's a distinction there between pain and suffering.
How is that? I don't get it.
Well, he's saying, here's what's going to happen. And to me, what he's inviting, the invitation is to recognize that your son is going to do the job he came to do.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a whole lot of upheaval around him.
Right.
And so, as opposed to, that this sword is going to pierce your soul too, that you're going to feel compassion for that, but he's not laying suffering on her. He's not saying, oh, what a victim he will be or you will be. He's saying there is going to be an experience here, and it's not going to be one that would be perhaps your preference to have as a mother. But he doesn't.
Yeah.
He's offering. There's going to be a compassionate jolt in you as you watch this happen, but he doesn't condemn her to suffering over it. Would be my take.
Well, certainly he's prophesying that she will be pierced in the heart. That's a literal thing, and we imagine that will be painful. We might assume that he's warning that you better be prepared because it's going to be hard for you. It's going to invite suffering. The line, I don't see the difference. I think the suffering is an inevitable thing. It doesn't mean she's a victim or that she would even see herself as a victim, but she's going to feel pain, and I call it suffering. So I haven't made that distinction strong enough yet. Good discussion. I'm not, I just don't quite understand the split. I don't think you have to see yourself as a victim to say that that is suffering. I think suffering can happen in the purest form, and maybe that's the difference in our discussion. We're talking about two different things.
Michael?
Well, certainly, when we see, I got a little guy here who's just waking up. Hey, Lincoln. Hey, sweetie, come here. My goodness. Hey there. There you go. I think that Simeon there is saying there's an inevitable. It's inevitable. This is going to be a difficult experience,
Mhm.
but he doesn't. To me, doesn't take us to the next level of suffering, and he's inviting. I think the Mary. The story was that she was one who carried no energy that was off the mark, no sin, that she
Mhm.
was pure in being. And my take would be that she would be the person who could simply hold the space for the healing that Yeshua might go through in his experience. And so let's breathe on it and see what opens next. We'll continue the discussion.
Okay. Thanks for engaging it.
Hey,
Delicious
delighted.
topic.
Appreciation. Blessings, everyone.